Let's talk about your brand new album with the band you started with your brother and a bunch of other legendary players, the Redcoats. When did the idea for this band come about, and what moment actually flipped the switch to make it finally happen?
The flip switching started when we were out on the road with Elton about 5 years ago, before COVID. And we had a couple days off in Dallas, and my friend Mike Medina, who's the co-producer with me on the Redcoat album, he goes, "Hey man, I'm playing at this club. You should come out and see our guitar player Andy playing." And I knew Andy Timmons from years ago, and I knew he was great. So I went to this small club, and I sat like 10 feet from him, and I was just my jaw was dropping, going, "Man, this guy is just so good." He would play these solos where he would just close his eyes and just go on forever and just play really amazing guitar. It wasn't like shredding metal crazy stuff. It was just really heartfelt lyrical guitar playing. And so I kind of grabbed him and said, "Hey man, we got to do something together." So I wrote this song, and it's on the first record called Only the Messenger. And I wrote it, and then I had Gregg play drums on it, and then sent it to Andy and to Wally, the keyboard player, and everybody put their stuff on, and I sang it. I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. And then Mike and I started talking about doing an album, maybe doing more songs. So it turned into an album. We put out the first album, Reddcoats 1, and then during COVID, sending files and doing all that stuff. And then he was joking about doing a second one. I'm going, oh man, that's a lot of work. But then we just started writing one song at a time, and then we finished the last record, which is Reddcoat Stew, amazingly titled. And yeah, it's been an amazing process to write for these guys, because I'll write the songs to start with, and then I'll send files, and I'll say, "This is the premise of the song. Here's my little demo of what I did. Do whatever you want." So it's pretty much like everybody writes because everyone's contributing their parts. So it's the ultimate thing of, we're all have been side guys playing with everybody, but this is our time to just go, this is the music that we really want and we really like, and just playing whatever we want. So, and it's a combination of all the stuff we talked about, the AM radio, where you go, Weather Report, Santana, Carole King, James Taylor, whatever it is all mashed into this band. And we kind of copied the introduction thing for Chicago on both records. The first record is a song called Reddcoat, which kind of goes through all different styles and introduces the players as well as the new record. So it's just really fun just to do stuff and to be able to write stuff that I know these guys can play, these crazy parts. And it's just fun.
So you kind of started doing this, I guess, was it while you were still touring with
Yeah.
Elton at that time?
Yeah.
So if you were working on some of this stuff while you were on tour, did Elton ever overhear any of the material you were working on? And if so, did he ever express any opinions on
He, I don't even know if he ever noticed. I remember
it?
I was producing Rick Springfield's record called Rocket Science when we were in the studio in Village recording Elton's record. And it was one of those things. My job with Elton was, Bob would tell me, when Elton's writing a song, you just kind of get your paper and you write whatever chords he's playing, so that when the band plays, I can give a chart to Davey and everybody's on the same page. And first time we were at Village Studio, Bernie Taupin was there, and he would put like 20 lyrics on the piano, and Elton would look at it and he'd go, and he starts writing the piano to those words. And then the light kind of came on to me. That's why there's so many odd phrases and bars, because he's writing the music to the words, completely different than anybody else. That's why it's kind of a little bit odd here and there and changes and stuff. So I remember when I was doing that, I had my laptop and I was editing Rick's vocals on my laptop, when we're on the, time where we're just taking a break. And Elton would kind of walk by me and goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I'm doing Rick Springfield's record." And he goes, "I like Rick Springfield." Because I guess Rick presented Elton had to present an award when Rick won the Grammy or whatever in '83 or something. So he was always kind of supportive, but I mean, it was business. We're all working and stuff like that. So I was also editing all the Redcoat stuff when we were in other times in the studio with Elton too. And we never really he would never come over and go, let me hear this, or
Mm.
let me, because he's kind of in his world, it's kind of two separate worlds.
And his world is probably hectic and busy. Um,
Yeah.
your brother has called you his favorite songwriter. Knowing him as you do and knowing his skill set and career, what does it mean to you that he thinks that of you?
Well, I mean, he's my best friend, and we know each other's almost too much, and when I write something, I like with the Redcoats, I kind of go, I want my brother to be the animal that he is because he can play anything, and he's kind of like letting Michael Jordan loose on the basketball court. I know that I can write anything and he'll write a chart for it. And once he's written that chart, it's over because he's already got it up here. He can play anything. So we've done so many sessions together working on other people's musics and stuff that we know each other and we know what we can do and what we can't do and stuff like that. So um, I've written a lot of songs, probably over 1,000 songs that he's played drums on over the years. So it's you meet when you have people in your life that you work with that are your friends, it's just so much easier than a stranger or just picking somebody off the street to play that it just saves so many steps. So as far as being his favorite songwriter, that's nice of him to say. I'm sure that's not all the way true, but we're in the same school of music. I mean, we have a band with Rick Springfield called the Red Locusts, which is we write an album, 10 songs that sound just like the Beatles, but we write them. And our goal is to go to Beatle jail. Like they're going to go, that's too close to the Beatles. Okay, cuff us, take us. We're guilty. We love the Beatles. So we're all, Gregg is Ringo, I'm Paul, we're playing these songs. And because we have the same upbringing with Chicago and all these different bands and the jazz things, it's like we think exactly the same. And that saves so many steps. So he's an amazing drummer. He can do anything.
And what I think is kind of cool, and I may be wrong on this, but you have a lot of situations. We've got brothers, and there's kind of like a sibling rivalry, but it doesn't appear that it seems like you guys work to uplift each other, where it's the rising tide raises all ships rather than the
Right.
standard sibling rivalry. Would that be true to say or no?
Yeah, we've only had one fist fight. And I remember in the old days, I was Gregg just went to college and I was in my senior year of high school and I was drinking a lot back then.
Mm.
And I remember doing a New Year's Eve gig and we'd come home from our gigs and take our gear and put it back in the basement. So I was unloading my amp and he came home from his gig. It was like 4 a.m. and I was pretty hammered because I don't drink anymore, but I used to a lot back then. And he was kind of busting my chops outside, and it's snowing outside. We're in the driveway, and he goes, "Oh, did Maddie have too much to drink?" And he kind of did like this. And I go, "Gregg, don't do that." And he goes, "Oh, Matt, you kind of like this." And I go, "One more time, I'm going to take you out." So he did it one more time, and I went to grab him, and he just goes, "Bam!" And he hit me, and I went, and I charged at him, and he moved out of the way, and I smashed my head into the wall of our house, like blood's coming down like that. I go, "I'm gonna kill you, man!" And he runs right through the house into my mom and dad's bed. My mom and dad were up, celebrating New Year's Eve, and he jumps in their bed and he goes, "Mom, Dad, Matt's drunk and he's trying to kill me." And I went at him and I looked at him, and then we just started laughing. It was like, and we made a mental note, we're never gonna do this again. And the closest we ever got to anything else was when I was producing his solo record and Steve Vai was playing guitar on it. And we were in a studio and where there's this pool table and he's going, "Matt, come on, you're supposed to be producing this record. Steve's playing his solo. Go in there and produce." And I'm going, "Gregg, I'm a producer, but I am not going to tell Steve Vai what to play on a guitar solo." It's like, are you crazy? I mean, what am I going to say? What can you say? He's Steve Vai. And he was going, and I go, "Gregg, get off my back." And then we kind of grabbed each other on the pool table and we just started laughing. Only because we were brothers so much for so long and we love each other so much that we can kind of just in the heat of that moment just go, "Okay, we both want the same thing. Let's get there." But other than those two things, I can't even remember ever arguing about anything. And he's always trying to help me and be my big brother and lead me in the right place and making, because he knows that I kind of want to do my own thing and I've kind of broken away from him telling me everything to do. But it's a really healthy thing. You know, we're like best friends. And whenever we go do a session, I'm just so happy that he's on it because I know that he's going to make everybody laugh. He's going to make everybody feel good at the session. And that's the goal. We want to go there and do a great job and leave the room better than it was when we got there, you know?
Is there, well, let me ask you this. What aspect of this record are you most excited about? Is there a song, a theme, a particular bass line or drum line, or something else?
My favorite song on this record is the second one, All For Me, just because of what we're saying in the lyrics and the feel of it. There's a, you know, the idea of the band was we loved the Yellow Jackets, you know, when we were with Maynard, that was our band, you know. And I just talked to Jimmy Haslett, just saying, man, we ripped you guys' name off because we're the Red Coats and they're the Yellow
Yellow
Jackets.
Jackets, yeah.
And it's kind of, you know, homage to them and to all that kind of music. And but there's this song on Lee Ritenour's record called Mr. Briefcase. I don't know if you've ever heard that song before. Eric Tagg is singing it. It's like a like a 12/8 feel. That's kind of the song All For Me is inspired from. That song to me is kind of the main song for me because it's talking for me, it's talking about God and Jesus dying on the cross for me. He did all this stuff for me. I can love my neighbor. I mean, there's, you know, basically when you break it down, the world would be a better place for two things that Jesus talked about. If you love your neighbor as yourself and you honor God with everything you do those two things, there's never going to be another war again. Everything's going to be fine. But of course, in this world, that's never going to happen. But that's what that song's about. So for me, lyrically, that's the message that I'm into. And the music of it is just hearing Andy play solos over this stuff. Probably that song and the first song, Reddcoat Stew, to me, because it reminds me of like an old Gino Vanelli record. And I've been working with Joe Vanelli with REO, and I'm just sitting there gushing over him every week I see him, you know, like asking how they got their deal and how they did their stuff. So that old Gino Vanelli stuff, those chords and that kind of music just really hits with me, you know? So, and then there's songs like the third song, which is kind of like a David Sanborn kind of song. It was recorded with sax first, and then we redid it with the Redcoats because we're all huge David Sanborn freaks, you know, and Marcus Miller and Omar Hakim. And that album, As We Speak, was a huge influence to Gregg and I. So each song is kind of a different thing. And like the fourth song, Mask On, Mask Off, which obviously is written during COVID and having to walk in a room and go, is it okay to take, you know, that whole thing? And it's just a spastic, fast weather report song of confusing, fast stuff because it was such a confusing time, you know? So, I mean, it's not like Satriani, what Joe would write a instrumental song, he's playing the guitar as if it's a voice. And he would always tell me, he would always play the same solo all the time because he, even though he could play anything, that's the voice of the song and he wanted to resonate with the crowd. It's a little different with the Redcoats because we're just a mess, just jamming and playing around like that. So it's just with the Redcoats, it's just all kind of experimental. Like when we play gigs, we all go off the rails because we're just having so much fun, just goofing off. We don't really think about our voices. We just kind of have fun and play, you know.